Hi, and welcome to another episode of Aging to Perfection. I am your host, Mel Seifert, and we are excited to jump into this conversation that I'm calling Is Getting Slim Shady? And it's a conversation about all of these weight loss medications, GLP-1s, the Wegovy's, all of those. And here to chat with us today is Julia Stevens, who's a registered dietitian and health coach and the owner of Active Nutrition LLC. So Julia, thank you so much for joining me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah. So give us a little introduction about, how you came to be a registered dietitian and health coach and about your business.
Absolutely. So my background was actually exercise physiology, and I noticed that was only half the puzzle. So I went back to school and became a registered dietitian, and I've been working with my patients and clients in both areas, taking a little bit more of a holistic approach. So I run Active Nutrition, which is a virtual private practice here in Michigan.
Oh, great. So it is online. There's an online platform for it. It's all virtual.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And what's the website for your business?
Allfoodisgoodfood.com.
Allfoodisgoodfood.com. I love that because I think people get scared of food, right? I mean, you're kind of worried about if you go to McDonald's one day and have a salad for the rest of the week, right? So
absolutely,
you have to kind of balance that.
Absolutely correct. So I work a lot on the behavior change aspect with my clients and focusing on just creating a long-term, sustainable, healthy lifestyle.
Oh, that's great. So we've been hearing a lot about these GLP-1 medications. I mentioned it in the intro. So the Mounjaro, the Wegovy. I mean, there's so many out there right now that people are taking, and there's so much buzz around this new medication and what it's doing. Can you share with us a little bit about what this medication does and, what's the good and the bad? Or, we're kind of hearing both sides of this and just kind of want to hear your perspective of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll start with the basics of what these meds do. They are basically agonists, which means our body makes GLP-1s already. And so these medications work the same way, very similar to what we already create, but they work in a much more intense fashion, and they last a lot longer than what the GLP-1s that our body makes do. So we see a larger effect. And they are created by the small intestine after we eat. And so when we inject them, they, instead of coming from the intestine, right, they're coming from the medication, and they go to all of these receptors, which are in organs throughout our whole body. And they act in different ways in each of these organs. And so in the beginning, when they first came out with Ozempic, which was the big one that we saw at the beginning of the year, and then Mounjaro followed, they work primarily for diabetics in the pancreas. And they help by increasing the amount of insulin secretion that we're seeing to help those diabetics manage their blood sugars more safely, which is wonderful.
Yeah. So if you're a diabetic, I mean, you were already kind of on this medication, or maybe it was new to you as well. But if you're on it strictly for weight loss, does your body accept it differently? Does it go to different receptors that way? Or how does that all play?
So it's actually the same medication.
Okay.
So we are going to see the same effect in the pancreas. But like I said, these receptors are all throughout our body. And so when it comes to weight management, some of the other effects, the other places that we have these receptors are our GI tract. And so our stomach, we're seeing that delayed gastric emptying, we call it. And so it makes us feel fuller for a longer period of time, which is great, right? And so we're not able to eat as much because we fill up much faster, and then we feel full longer, and so we won't be hungry for a few more hours, which is really one of the most beneficial effects from a weight management perspective that we're seeing. Many individuals that are struggling with overweight or obesity also have maybe prediabetes or some insulin resistance there, and so that pancreas effect is also helping them as well. Another interesting one that we've seen is the receptor in the brain. And so we're seeing that some people call it, well, it's decreasing my food noise, and it's really helping them to not think about food as much.
Right.
And feel a little bit more relaxed around food. So a lot of interesting effects that we see for the weight management patients.
So I've been hearing a lot. I mean, everybody's been hearing about this, whether it's the commercials or Today Show or Good Morning America or the news. There's some positive benefits that researchers have seen through this too. My father had aortic valve replaced, and his doctor actually put him on Ozempic because they're seeing some positive effects with heart disease and heart issues. I mean, have you heard about this as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So GLP-1s also seem to improve endothelial function, and those endothelial cells line our veins and arteries, and so it's helping to improve those cells. And it also has a vasodilatory effect, which means it helps to relax those blood vessels.
Wow.
And so we are seeing a lot of improvements in cardiovascular health. And I'm not a cardiologist, so I'm sure there are other effects from a cardiovascular side that we're also seeing, but those are the two that I'm aware of.
Yeah,
so,
no, that's fantastic. And then I also heard that it's helping individuals that have alcohol addictions too. And maybe that's part of the brain receptors and that, quote unquote food noise, but maybe that's playing a part also with addictions perhaps?
Yeah, absolutely. And so it'll be interesting, especially as more and more research is done and the medications have been around longer, what other areas really we're seeing improvements in. I've even had more anecdotally, I've had some patients tell me that just that decrease in food noise is really helping them feel a little bit more relaxed and calm. And so they're saying that their anxiety is feeling a little bit more under control as well. So that's a little bit more anecdotal. We'll see what the research shows, but definitely some interesting areas here.
Absolutely. So this seems like a miracle drug, right? So all of this sounds fabulous to me, but, I'm hearing a lot of downsides of this also. Can you speak to some of the areas where people are like, doesn't have the long-term effect that you're going to want to have? Maybe your body becomes too reliant on these LGP-1s and it can't create them anymore. I'm just throwing ideas out there, but if you can speak to that would be amazing.
Sure, of course. So nothing's ever perfect, right? And so there's always going to be a downside, and the medications are definitely not for everyone. So you do have to have a good conversation, a good heart-to-heart with your primary care provider. But we definitely would be cautious with patients that maybe already have some gastroparesis, or bowel obstructions or inflammatory bowel disease, anything like that, where slowing down the rate of digestion is just going to make things a little bit worse. So that would definitely be a concern. Anyone that already has had a history of pancreatitis, and then of course on the commercials we see the risk of thyroid cancer does increase slightly as well. So you definitely want to have that conversation and weigh out the risk versus benefit with your primary care, just based on your history.
So, a lot of people are either for it or against it, like most things in life. I mean, we just came through an election, so we all know what that's like. But do you think the medication has been around long enough to know that there's going to be the positives going to outweigh the negative or the other way around? Or how long do you think it needs to be out for us to really determine what the impact this is going to have, whether it's good or bad, on the health of our country?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Ozempic came out initially in 2017, and some of the other medications have been out for a few years before that. So they have been around for a little bit. Mm-hmm. Of course, over the last year, it's ballooned. The amount of people that have been taking it once it was approved for weight management has really, really increased. So it's hard to say for weight loss what some of those long-term complications might be that come out, just because it hasn't really been around long enough for us to really say. So it seems that it is fairly safe right now, but, who knows what may come up in the future.
Sure.
So I always say, again, it's about weighing that cost benefit, dependent on each person's history.
Absolutely.
And what other methods have also already been tried, right?
Yeah.
For weight management, too.
I've had some friends that have wanted to get on these medications, and their insurance is definitely making them prove that they've tried other things than just going right to this medication. And so think people really need that first step. And as you said, early on is, how do you manage your weight in a very healthy way, and talk about, I've always read that it's like a bank account. Your diet's like a bank account. You can't have a cookie and then have cake later on, or, all those kind of things. It needs to be a balanced solution. So, what would you recommend for individuals who may not want to go right to these medications and do want to do something for themselves, that maybe try it on their own? What are the tips that you give most of your clients that go to you?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll preface that by saying that there really is no substitute for a healthy lifestyle. We're not going to be able to take a medication and then not focus on our lifestyle too. So
right.
It has, lifestyle has to come first. And I always, I tell all of my clients and patients that you can take the medication, but think of that as another tool in your toolbox or strategy. The basis of what we're doing has to be a lifestyle change. And so if the medications are not available to you, you don't meet the criteria, they're too expensive, start with a healthy lifestyle. Because even if you don't see a huge change on the scale, you're moving in the right direction. It might just be a little bit slower. And so a few of the areas that I always focus on, and this is with meds or not, number one, you have to start strength training.
Yeah.
You've got to get in the gym and start lifting some weights. Improving that muscle mass is going to do your metabolism wonders. And so we really put a large emphasis in weight management on strength training.
Yeah.
And then when it comes to diet, we have to make sure we're getting enough protein in our diet. That's going to be important. Not Atkins level. We don't have to be, all or nothing about it, but we do need to focus on protein. And then the third one is fiber.
Okay.
Americans lack fiber ginormously. So eating your fruits and vegetables, getting back to the basics, and just, one habit at a time. Small changes do add up.
Well, this podcast is sponsored by AARP. I work for AARP. We are an organization that definitely advocates for the 50 plus. And, throughout my time doing this podcast, I've had a variety of guests on, whether it be breast cancer survivors. I've had an OBGYN come on and talk about menopause and perimenopause. And honestly, at the root of every conversation that I've had that is related to health, there's always that lifestyle component. There's always that, you need to work out. You need to make sure that you're, making the right choices food-wise, getting that protein in, but also moving. People keep talking about, even with menopause and perimenopause, the impact that exercise is going to have on you. And I know people are rolling their eyes that once again, we have one more thing that we're talking about having to get up in the morning or in the afternoon and really push ourselves to move our bodies and eat right. But it really does change the course of your life and the health of your life.
5,000%.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's not fun and flashy.
No.
And exciting, but it's what we have to do in order to live a long, healthy life. You have to get back to basics in terms of your healthy lifestyle behaviors.
Well, we're wrapping up here, and I just really appreciate this conversation because I feel like we did dispel maybe some of the rumors that were out there, and maybe getting slim isn't as shady as some people are saying, but I think some tips that you gave about really being thoughtful and mindful about if you're the right candidate for this and really going, to your physician and having these conversations is so key. Don't make these decisions in a bubble, but make sure that you're having these in-depth conversations. But any last minute thoughts, or if you want to share your website again so that people might, want to try something out besides just going to medication, that would be really helpful, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, my website is allfoodisgoodfood.com. And I work with individuals on the healthy lifestyle aspects, whether you're taking the medications or not. And I do small groups as well. And again, it's all virtual. So I think it's just getting back to the basics and really focusing on what are those small changes that we can make that add up over time to help you live a longer, healthier life.
Well, thank you so much, Julia Stevens, for being with us today. Registered dietitian and health coach and owner of Active Nutrition LLC. One more time, her website is www.allfoodisgoodfood.com. So I hope that you all learned something here today, and don't forget to tune in to Aging to Perfection and make sure you stay perfect. Thanks, everyone.